Next.
This time, can we please go to agenda item 7D, William Murnighan? And I believe the licensee is here.
Mr. Murnighan, you can go ahead and come up and have a seat at the table and introduce yourself for the record.
Mr. Chairman, board members, my name is William Murnighan. I'm a LISAC and I practice in Wickenburg, Arizona.
Okay, thank you, sir. And we'll now hear from board staff.
Chairpersons, members of the board, this matter is before you today to consider and possibly open a complaint against the background information that we provided in our report. In 10/18, the board received a complaint against the licensee alleging that he may have engaged in unprofessional conduct. During its investigation of this complaint, which is still pending, board staff identified that licensee may be practicing outside of the scope of his LISAC license. As you note, the information that we submitted, it's excerpts from the website as well as other websites that we have in regards to Mr. Murnighan's private practice. He's solely licensed as an independent LISAC, and based on the substance abuse counseling definition, it appears that he is practicing out of his scope. Again, this is for the board to consider opening up a complaint for further investigation, and that's all I have unless you have further questions.
Are there any additional questions for board staff? Mr. Murnighan, you would have up to 5 minutes to address the board.
Thank you. I'm not sure what the specifics are on my website or other places that suggest that I'm practicing outside of the scope of my license. I am a LISAC. I do substance abuse counseling, and according to the guidelines for substance abuse counselors, that we are allowed to counsel substance abusers and people affected by substance abuse, like family members or other folks like that. I do that, and also in order to address the issues of some of these people, it's necessary for me to do types of therapy for trauma and for relaxation, things like that. The National Institute of Health says that effective treatment to multiple needs attends to multiple needs of the individual, not just his or her drug abuse. To be effective, treatment must address the individual's drug abuse and any associated medical, psychological, social, and vocational legal problems. I do that. And the third principle in NIDA's 13 Principles of Effective Treatment attends to multiple needs of the individual, not just his or her drug abuse. And in the same National Institute of Drug Abuse, the addicted to drug abuse individuals with coexisting disorders should have both disorders treated in an integrated way. I do that. I know that my website lists a multiple of issues that I address. They're not intended to be addressed unless they are co-occurring disorders. Oftentimes what I find is that people, when they call for information or for counseling, they are calling for issues related to like domestic issues, trauma, things like that. And as you begin to explore it, you oftentimes find that there is a substance abuse base for the traumas that they're experiencing in their life. I take the initial call. I ask questions to see if there is a substance abuse related issues in that. And if there's not, which is pretty rare, by the way, but if there's not, then I refer them to another colleague.
Okay. Any additional that you want to state?
Well, I'm a little concerned. The original problem that came before the board was a woman who had a history of abusing her children. And what she had asked for was for me to release their clinical records to her. She was not the custodial parent at the time. Believing that she was going to use them to do further damage to the children, I refused. She filed a complaint, and that snowballed into this. It almost sounds like a witch hunt.
Well, and if I could go back just a little bit, we don't want to hear too much detail on the other situation because that's still under investigation. What we're looking at is strictly the information relative to the scope of practice.
Got it.
Ms. Zavala, you...
Chairperson, may I just briefly address that? I understand where the licensee is coming from, but in the investigation that we were doing of the original complaint, it was brought to our attention based on the scope that was being provided to the kiddos in that particular complaint that led us here today. So that's all I have to say.
I'm not sure I understand that. How that relates to the scope.
Again, as a part of their investigation, they found information that they felt they needed to bring in front of the board, and that's where we're at today.
Good.
And any questions from board members for Ms. Murnighan?
I have one question. In the one of the websites, it's kind of just says confidential therapy associates and kind of has a menu, and then you introduce yourself. And you have a very nice reflection of what you do, but nowhere in there does it even mention substance abuse. So when I read it, it does lend itself for me to think that you provide something actually outside of substance abuse. And I would call on a myriad of other issues just based on this introduction.
And that's possible. And if you did call on a myriad of other issues during the initial call, I would ask the questions that would determine whether or not substance abuse with a family member or with them was part of the problem. And again, if not, then I would refer them. I need to say that my website is kind of a work in progress. And when I pulled it up, I was surprised because it didn't really look like what I had originally designed. And I'm not suggesting that it's not my work that is on there, but I do say it's a work in progress.
Well, I just might add, it does appear misleading, and it does not appear reflective of what your actual licensing is.
I don't know that I would agree with that, but however, what we're talking about is, do I practice outside of the scope of my license? And I don't. The website may very well call people or encourage people to call me during the initial screening process over the phone. I will determine whether or not they're appropriate for my practice, and if not, I refer them out. But I could concede that my website may be misleading. Like I said, it's a work in progress. But I don't treat outside of my practice or outside of my license.
Well, everybody you treat, their basic problem is substance abuse.
Everybody I treat, their basic problem is substance abuse related. That could be a family member, that could be a spouse, that could be them. But yes.
And I did notice from your website that it talked about sexual dependency. Mm-hmm. So if I were to call in and say, I want this sexual dependency inventory done that is billed out here, one of your first questions to me would be, so do you have a substance abuse issue?
No. One of my first questions would be, say more about that. Tell me about your sexual dependency. What's it look like? What else goes on with it? Do you use chemicals when you're acting out in whatever way you choose to act out? I would kind of, if he asks that question directly, most people react. It's like, no, I don't abuse chemicals. Nobody really wants to admit quickly to chemical abuse. My approach is to ask other questions related to their concern. People with sexual dependency very often, and there's a high rate of substance abuse with sexual dependency issues. So I think it's fair to address the sexual dependency over the phone and then talk about the circumstances that surround it.
Any additional questions from board members? Okay, so this will be the opportunity for us to discuss amongst ourselves. We'd ask that you not interrupt us. And this one was, I know that, Mary, this one was yours, and what we're looking at is whether or not we wanted to open a complaint.
Yeah, just with everything we have, and it is misleading possibly, or I'm not sure. I think we need to open a complaint and get some more information before we do anything.
That'll be your motion?
Mr. Chairman?
My motion, unless somebody has something else.
I just want a point of clarification from our LISACs, if that's okay, because I'm not a LISAC, but I understood that a client's primary diagnosis had to be substance abuse, or is that true?
No, that's not true.
It's a confusing area for us, so that's why a further investigation might be.
Okay.
Because even if you read the definition, it's so if they're only treating the substance abuse and they are referring out to the other issues, but if they are treating something other than substance abuse, then that would be an issue. So, but I think further investigation, because it's not clear to me if he was or wasn't, if that makes sense. And then unfortunately, it's not completely clear in rule or statute.
Thank you.
So that would be my motion to open a complaint for further investigation.
We have okay.
Kramer?
Megan seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion does carry. So board staff will be in contact with you in regards to this.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.